Right, let's get into our first topic now. Should royals pay corporation tax on their property empires? That's what we're asking. Get your calls in for this one now. King Charles and Prince William are reportedly each pulling in more than £20 million a year thanks to property and business deals related to their private estates. Now, the Duchy of Lancaster and Cornwall, which belong to the King and William, respectively, have a joint worth of 1.8 billion. They lease properties and land across a total of 180,000 acres to a variety of public bodies, including state schools and the armed forces. They also rent out more than 900 residential homes, according to Channel 4's dispatches in the Sunday Times. Perhaps the most controversial revelation, though, is that the NHS is paying the Duchy of Lancaster £11.4 million over 15 years to store ambulances in a warehouse. Now, both the King and Prince William voluntarily pay the top income tax rate of 45% on their earnings from the duchies. But under an agreement with the Treasury, they do not pay corporation tax, which stands at 25% for companies with profits over £250,000. So the question is, why should the royals be exempt? Or should they be exempt? What do you think, Paula?
I think they should not be exempt, and I have to say I am confused as to why they're exempt. So look, we understand that back in 1760, the government of the time said, we're going to take over the Crown estate, we're going to manage it for you, and we are going to provide you with a sovereign sum to allow you to maintain the palaces, etc., and to allow you to do your official duties. Fantastic, we get that, we can see that. But what happened was King Charles and Prince William were able to inherit these estates because they were left to one side, believing at the time for them to be worthless. Of course, they are now not worthless and are generating this massive figure that, quite frankly, I'm unable to compute in my mind. And we are told, through the hard work of investigative journalism, because that is how we have found this out, not because of transparency, not because of there being full and frank disclosure, that actually these estates, whilst earning vast sums of money to privately fund King Charles and Prince William, we've learnt that they are earning these vast sums from charitable organisations or public services. And the irony of it is, Storm, is that some of the charitable organisations Prince William and King Charles are patrons of. So they are doing this charitable work. They're going out and drinking tea and eating cake, all this time supposedly to raise the charity's awareness of the charity, etc. And then pocketing some of that money. It's just, it's bizarre, it's boggling.
I mean, the only thing I can think is maybe they're giving them a good deal on whatever rent that they might be paying.
It's not a good look. I must say, when I heard this story, I just thought, actually, how are they going to sort of cope with this? And I don't actually think we should get caught up with should they pay corporation tax or not. I think the bigger question is actually...
Well, why not? They're a business.
Well, no, but as a business, you've got to ask yourself, how do I earn my money? Is it right that I earn an income from the NHS? Is it right that I earn an income by charging rents to the Ministry of Defence and Charities? So, you know, as a business, you have to decide what is the right way to earn your money. And I do not think, as being members of the royal family, you should be charging rent, because one of the things they keep advocating is that actually it doesn't come out of the public purse. It comes back to us eventually. It does come back to us. So I just think that they really need to have a look at this and say, what is a reasonable way to earn money and what is not acceptable? That's a question for me.
That's two different things there. And we can all see that charging the NHS £11.4 million to store ambulances over 15 years is not a good look for the royal family. It is not a
and they shouldn't
good
be doing
PR
that anyhow.
move. OK, but what we're talking about is the corporation tax. So let's say they didn't charge any government bodies. They weren't working with any government bodies. They didn't charge the NHS. These are all private rents. Then should they be paying corporation tax on that? If we focus on the corporation tax element of the...
Well, I would... if you take out the element you just explained...
Take out the government bodies and charities, and now we're dealing with private people lending...
Yes, I would then accept that's a really reasonable way to pay corporation tax, because what we want to see is sort of fairness And at the moment, they seem to be privileged to an extent that actually it's making them personally wealthy, but it's not coming back to the country in any way.
Okay, but you're a businessman. You have an expectation of a deal with the government that you have had. I mean, this is an ancient deal, so this has been going on for centuries and generations.
But they're not
And
doing
all of
anything.
a sudden they're going to change it? Is that fair?
But they're not doing anything to earn that money. One of the worst ways, the privilege they have is just by owning land and renting out to other people. That's how they're making their living. I've got an issue with that. I think if they're going out and physically doing something, then you could say, okay, fine. But they're getting that out of privilege. And that's one of the issues that I've got.
I suppose the defence for the royal family would be that they use that land for good causes and causes to benefit the country. I know they gave up
No, they don't.
sea to build wind farms in order to generate more electricity for this country.
Which they are earning from.
Which they are earning from, but they've still allowed it. They've given access to that land, and I don't know.
But what they say in their statement is they pride themselves of running this as a commercial enterprise, okay? And that's fine, but when you're earning a living based on charging the NHS, changing the public sector, I have an issue with that.
Well, hold on. There's lots of people earning a living charging the NHS.
That's fine, but I think...
And so why are the royals
but
any
I think
different
you
then?
need to draw a line when it comes to the sort of royals. I think that, you know, earning your living that way, a lot of your living that way, I just don't think is acceptable.
Well, I suspect that a lot of those people who do charge the NHS, of course, have to pay all the taxes that
They will
are
have to
due.
pay the corporation.
And I think, in defence of the royal family, can I just say, to me, this isn't about King Charles or Prince William. This is very much about the institution and how the institution has decided to manage itself. And the institution, I think, is letting King Charles and Prince William down.
OK, let's go to the calls and see what you at home think. 0207 862 2222 is the number for your thoughts on this. How do you feel about the fact that the Duchy of Lancaster and the Duchy of Cornwall are not paying corporation tax, the same as any other business would have to? Valerie from York, you're up first. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, I just think they are absolutely greedy, taking money out of the NHS, not paying tax. Charging for schools, charging for a prison that isn't even used, charging for parking ambulances up. They're absolutely dead greedy as far as I'm concerned. The more they get, the more they want.
I hear that, or I see rather, how on the surface it can look like they are just being greedy, but none of us really know the specific details of this. So they could actually be really undercharging the NHS for this warehouse, a warehouse that could be used for something else. They could be, undercharging the MOD for using the ports and things. They might actually be offering up a very good deal to the government and the taxpayer, something that if the NHS was to go to another company would be paying through the nose for. Valerie. So there's an argument that they're saving the taxpayer money is the argument that I'm putting forward.
If there was transparency, we would know whether you're right to that, because you're making an assumption that everybody else is getting a good deal.
We're making an assumption that they're bleeding the NHS dry. So I'm trying to put forward another assumption.
I'm not saying they're bleeding the
No, with Valerie,
dry.
as Valerie says that they're being incredibly greedy.
But I just think earning a living, how much it is from the NHS or any public sector, I think is wrong.
For the royal family
specifically. For the royal family, yeah.
Well, Valerie, how would you like them to make their money?
I'd like them, if they want to make money, let the government stop giving them money, making them richer and richer and richer, and put the money into the NHS. This country's on its knees. But they're not bothered. They've just took all the electricity money off the pensioners, and they're making all that money. They don't give a damn about us in this country. They just have to line in their own pockets. Why don't they sell all the palaces? Prince William's on about homeless people.
Well, Valerie, they can't sell the palaces because many of the palaces don't actually belong to them. They are owned by us, I suppose, the taxpayer. So they can't sell them. They're not free to do those sorts of things on all of those properties. And I see how it can appear that we as taxpayers are just funding them and funding them and funding them, and they are making more money out of the taxpayer, and that's probably not a good PR look, but they're the royal family. We have chosen to have them. They are a tradition in this country. They're respected fairly well globally, and they bring in a lot of money in tourism. There's an argument to say maybe they're worth more than the money we pay them.
This country's on its knees. Where's all the money go? Where does it go? We never found out where it's all going.
Well, I'm not sure it's all going to the royal family, Valerie, but going back to the case in point, when we're talking about the Duchy of Lancaster and the Duchy of Cornwall, these are estates that have been handed down through the monarch and the heir to the monarch through generations and generations and generations. And actually, if you look at it, they seem to have done quite well in increasing the property values and increasing the value of that land to a point where they are making a huge amount of money out of it. Is that not something to be rewarded?
No. There's people living in damp houses, what they own. Why aren't they paying them, making so much money? Why aren't they having these houses done up for them? Instead of people living in cold, damp houses.
Well, that is an argument.
They're always on about the environment and all this, that and other. All that's a load of rubbish just to cover.
And William's been doing a lot of work with the homeless, and it was a question that was asked, but I do think he had suggested he was going to let up some of the land to build more houses. But I think in terms of the homes that we're going to need to fight the housing crisis, it's probably not the most. Thank you very much, Valerie, for your call on that, very passionate. Laura on Facebook, there doesn't seem to be many people in defence of the royal family here, so if you do want to defend them, give us a call. 0207 862 2222 is the number for that. Otherwise, I'll continue to trying to do so. Laura on Facebook says they should, but ultimately it is up to the government. I mean, well, that is absolutely true. So, Paula, why aren't the government making them pay that money?
Well, you know, we saw this, didn't we, in terms of our the Queen, who's now obviously sadly passed. In 1992, there was a discussion around whether the royal family should volunteer to pay income tax, and there was this discussion ultimately between the Queen and the government at the time. And this was brought about, again, because of investigative journalism. That's how the story came about. And, you know, the Queen took it upon herself to conduct these discussions and ultimately agreed that they would offer to pay income tax. Now, some people may be uncomfortable with that, the whole kind of offering to pay and not being told they have to pay. But it's the same thing, isn't it, now that we are confronted with for King Charles and Prince William? Are they going to suggest that there should be a discussion around whether they should offer to pay corporation tax? And I think that that's what needs to happen, because it's an ugly look, isn't it?
It's not just about corporation tax, but how do they earn their living? What is acceptable?
And
we
the
are finding
transparency of it all, isn't it?
We are finding out more and more about that. The thing that I spent far too long this morning trying to look up is, what do they spend their money on? They don't have to pay rent. They don't have to pay for their staff. They don't have to pay for quite a lot of stuff. So, toothpaste, bread, I don't know. I'd love to know. We'll get your calls in for the next topic now, because we are going to have to move on.